Hey everybody, I'm going to start this video off a little bit differently today with a content warning. There will be frank discussions of mental illness, suicide, war, and sex, so if any of those things bother you, you may want to skip this video.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Bowie.
So on today's video, I'm going to be talking about his seminal work, The Man Who Sold the World. So this is the album cover you're probably most familiar with, the Man in a Dress album cover. It's the reason why I feel wrong not wearing a dress for this video. Instead, I'm wearing this grungy flannel because of the dark lyrical themes and no other reason. But some of you may be more familiar with the American cover. This is a cartoon commissioned by one of Bowie's friends of John Wayne pictured here in front of Haddon Hall where Bowie lived at the time. The speech bubble was supposed to have a quote from one of the songs on the album, Running Gun Blues, but the American distributors decided they didn't like it, so they left the speech bubble empty. Really, the only reason I'm talking about this aesthetically unpleasing thing is if I had to look at it, so do you. That album cover looks like something that would be used by a joke or gimmick band, which is certainly not what David Bowie was going for here. The album's lyrical themes are heavy and dark, and they're complemented by a turn to an early heavy metal sound that sounds more akin to Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Cream, or Deep Purple. Now I'm just going to briefly cover the writing and composition of this album. According to different band members and producers, the whole process was just a mess. The band would jam out a new song and Bowie would write lyrics, often late in the process, and that sounds like it should create a total mess of an album, but actually it's an incredibly focused work. Now, I definitely side more with Mick Ronson and Tony Visconti's side of the story, saying that David Bowie was a bit too distracted by his first marriage to really commit to the album, but that's neither here nor there. What matters, really, in the end, is the finished product. Critical reevaluation has led to a lot of people calling this the start of David Bowie's classic period, as this would transition him from his early folk rock-inspired days to the sounds of his most prominent period of glam rock, which is kind of shocking because despite it being a critical and commercial success, none of the songs on the album were released as singles. Even the title track, one of Bowie's most recognizable works now, only became a hit when Lulu covered it, a version that he actually helped produce and sang backup vocals and played saxophone on. It may also have something to do with that other really popular cover of it. You know, the one by Midge that was used in the Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer. The album opens up with the 8-minute long The Width of a Circle. Now, despite of its running time, it immediately grabs your attention. It's bluesy and rough, and Bowie's vocal stylings really come into their own here. I would positively compare this to NIB and Snowblind by Black Sabbath with the way its lyrical content and the way its composition play out. Now, this song has been interpreted as being about David Bowie having a sexual affair with a deity, possibly the devil, but Bowie himself described it as being about depressive episodes. Now, while I do understand the interpretation of the former, as there are some pretty overt lyrics that would suggest that's what it's about, as someone who also battles depression, I recognize the metaphors that Bowie is going for here. The next song on the album is All the Madmen. This is a more serious topic to get into, and I don't want to approach it too lightly. Without going into too much detail, this song is about David Bowie's half-brother, Terry. His development was tragically fraught. It would eventually lead him to having severe schizophrenia and eventually lead him to suicide in 1985. When this song was written, he was in the Cane Hill mental hospital. Bowie spent a lot of his life fearful that he would go insane, like his brother, and this is just one of several songs that he would use to explore this emotion and this difficult subject in his life. The lyrics of the song are about Terry choosing to stay in the asylum where at least the people there understand him. While the guitar work is fantastic here, and even the Moog synthesizer adds a really nice component to the music, the chorus is accompanied by perhaps the worst musical instrument of all time, the recorder. It's an emotionally powerful track, but it does have some odd quirks in its composition. The next song on the album is Black Country Rock. This is a jam through and through. The lyrics were added late into the process, and they don't really matter a whole lot. They're just there to accompany a really awesome bluesy song. Apparently most of the lyrics were improvised by Bowie, and when he ran out of improvisations to do, he started going into his Mark Bolan impression. Apparently everybody liked it, so they kept it in. That's probably the most notable thing about this song. Now we come to the song After All. If you remember from the first video in the series, the song There Is a Happy Land, this song is viewed by many as a sinister counterpart to that, at least according to Genius.com. If you don't remember it, let me just summarize it as it being about the divide between being a child and being an adult. This song is about crossing that divide. The song is filled with references to Nietzsche and Aleister Crowley and Buddhism as he talks about wanting to rebirth himself in adulthood as something that is neither child nor adult but doesn't have the trappings of either one. The song is definitely the most obvious influence on the gothic rock genre. Its Latin strumming, synthesizer, and ominous bass, along with its creepy chorus singing the refrain, "Oh by Jingo," creates this foreboding atmosphere, and with the calliope that comes in later, it sounds like it should be played at the nightmarish carnival from Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's also very unique in David Bowie's catalog, as we wouldn't get something this creepy or esoteric again until Diamond Dogs or Scary Monsters. The next song we have is Running Gun Blues. This song is a great contrast to the war songs Bowie made during his Darum period, like Rubber Band and Little Bombardier, which never really grasped the true horror of war. Bowie describes a Vietnam soldier who has been trained to kill and enjoys and is addicted to his slaughter and can't turn that part of him off between wartime and when he's back home. The lyrics are harsh and disturbing as they detail a man who is clearly dealing with PTSD, and Bowie's vocals are completely unrestrained here, giving off the impression of a crazed individual. Savior Machine is another foray into science fiction for David Bowie, with a premise that sounds like it should be an episode of The Twilight Zone. In the future, society has created a sentient machine called the Prayer that is able to solve all of life's problems. But what begins as a utopia quickly becomes dystopic as the machine realizes that without adversity, there's nothing to strive for. So it tries to solve the problem of its own perfection by creating chaos and trying to destroy itself and taking humanity with it. And all in 4.5 minutes. This is definitely the midpoint between something like Space Oddity and Ziggy Stardust. It's cynical, rocking, and epic. The otherworldly synth adds so much atmosphere to this song, sounding like a missing piece of score from the Tron soundtrack, and the guitar riff on this one just oozes cool. And now we're on to the song She Shook Me Cold. This song sounds like a cross between Blue Cheer and Cream. Now, the subject matter of the song is about a blowjob. Probably the heaviest rocking song ever made about getting a blowjob. Every line emphasizes this. He even moans at one point. Is it wrong to say this one really blew my mind? I mean, it just really sucks all the air out of the room. I certainly have a taste for a song like this. Even the title is great. She Shook Me Cold. Just roll it around in your mouth a little bit. Oh god, Grandy's gonna see this. Hi, Grandy. I'm sorry I make blowjob jokes. So now for the title track. This is what it's all been building to. The Man Who Sold the World opens with arguably the most recognizable guitar riffs in history. The otherworldly voice effect, the bumping bass, the ghostly synth, and the distinctly Latin percussion on this song really give it its identity. The story of the song, as most of you probably already know, is about meeting an astral doppelganger of a younger version of himself. The lyrics seem to be looking forward and looking back at the same time, splintering off from his older self into his newer self, and not sure if he's satisfied with the outcome of that. It's a song about the deep reflection that comes with maturing. As he takes in the people around him, he realizes that it's a journey that everyone goes through on some level at some point in their lives. When I first got into Bowie, I just enjoyed this song for its haunting imagery and atmosphere. But now I relate to this song more than ever. The last couple of years, I've gone through a huge shift in my life. I used to be this really edgy guy. I would make very inappropriate jokes. I would have considered myself part of the anti-SJW community. And now I'm not that. I've gone in a completely opposite direction. And with that, political shift has brought a lot of changes to my personality as well, as I'm settling into who I am now. When I open myself up to different worldviews and experiences and perspectives and viewpoints, I couldn't go back to being who I was. And I shed so much of myself away that I just felt this emptiness inside of me that wasn't a negative thing. It was this ability to fill myself back up with my new self. And I think that that feeling is what Bowie was trying to convey with this song. To quote Bowie again, I guess I wrote it because there was a part of myself that I was looking for. Maybe now that I feel more comfortable with the way that I live my life and my mental state and my spiritual state, whatever, maybe I feel there's some kind of unity now. That song for me always exemplified kind of how you feel when you're young, when you know that there's a piece of yourself that you haven't really put together yet. You have this great searching, this great need to find out who you really are. Alright, now we're on to the album closer, the Supermen, opening with loud percussion, this rolling bass, an awesome guitar riff that was given to him by Jimmy Page, marking the second time he would work with Jimmy Page in his career, and the wonderful harmony of the band. This song really sets you up for a fun fantasy song, and that's essentially what it is. Bowie himself admitted later on that he didn't really understand Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, so his interpretation doesn't quite match the text. As one genius commenter pointed out, it's not really so much about an ideal to strive for as it is about the Greek gods. His voice really soars in a way that only he could pull off. And I can see how this one was a huge influence on the heavy metal bands that came after that dealt with mystical themes, fantasy-related themes. It's not quite as thoughtful as some of the other songs on this, but it's a great note to go out on. What should have been an absolute disaster of an album with its production history turned into a seminal work in Bowie's catalog. This is the first album that really delivers on his promise as a songwriter, a storyteller, and a rocker. With thought-provoking lyrics and singing that is enhanced by some wonderful compositions, this is the first album where Bowie really comes into his own. Check it out if you haven't, although if you're watching this, you probably already have. Next week, I'll be talking about his entrance into the glam rock phase of his career with Hunky Dory. Hey everyone, I'm going to start doing this at the end of my videos from now on. First of all, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like down below. Add a comment whether or not you agree with me, disagree with me, your own thoughts on the album, your favorite grandmother's recipe. Just go ahead, leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon so you get notified when I make these videos. I have 40 videos planned so far in this retrospective series, possibly more if I find more to talk about. And I also have some other things coming down the line that I'm planning now. So yeah, that's all. Thank you everyone. Bye!